When they cuffed me, my father raised his glass and smiled. "I'm the one who reported her," he said loud enough for the cameras to catch it. The room went silent. People stared at me like they'd just watched a hero expose a criminal. But I wasn't shocked he did it. My name is Evangeline Porter. And that was the moment I learned the man who taught me about duty had no idea what loyalty meant. That was also the night I stopped being his daughter and became the truth he couldn't destroy. The applause was polite, measured, the kind that fills a room but never reaches the heart. I smiled for the cameras and stepped onto the stage, my heels clicking against marble that gleamed like ice beneath the chandelier. The cello swelled somewhere behind me, a soft, graceful melody I barely heard. I'd stood under missiles and searchlights before, but never under chandeliers this bright. My palms stayed steady even as the light pressed down, heavy and golden. Somewhere in the front row, my father watched, his eyes sharp with something colder than pride. My mother sat 2 tables away, pretending not to notice either of us. When the master of ceremonies called my name again, the microphone cracked with static, a hiss, then silence. 2 men in dark suits appeared from the side aisle, cutting through the crowd like blades. They climbed the stage without hesitation. The first spoke with a voice that carried through the hall, metallic and final. "Evangeline Porter, you're under arrest for treason." Every sound vanished. The music died mid-note. The glasses froze halfway to lips. The perfume in the air turned bitter. I didn't move. The metal on my chest caught the light and flashed back at me, cruel and perfect. I'd been saluted in war zones, but never handcuffed in a ballroom. And then came his voice. "I'm the one who reported her," my father said, lifting his whiskey so the cameras could see. A ripple of gasps moved through the room, flashes bursting like gunfire. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I simply stared at the man who had taught me about duty and watched him betray it in public. As they led me away, someone shouted, "Traitor!" I didn't look back. Down the corridor, a faint rhythm echoed, boots moving in even cadence, familiar, deliberate. A sound I hadn't heard in years. For a moment, I thought I knew who they belonged to. Humiliation isn't defeat. It's the heat that forges you, or melts you. Outside, beneath the marble arch, the night air hit cold and clean. Behind me, my father's laughter floated through the doorway, quiet and satisfied. It wasn't the first time he'd enjoyed seeing me fall. The smell of salt and engine oil still clings to my memories of that old wooden house by the Charleston harbor. My father's medals, tarnished and dusty, hung crookedly on the wall like ghosts of a life that had slipped away. I was 16, barefoot, hands raw from trying to tie a line around the boat cleat. The rope slipped, and he barked, "You'll never make it in the Navy if you can't tie a knot." He wasn't teaching me skill. He was testing how much humiliation I could take. Years later, the sound of his temper stayed sharper than any whistle. In 1988, when the rescue vessel went down off Cape Romaine, I listened from behind a cracked door as he shouted into the phone. "They're framing me because I wouldn't play their game." The newspaper he threw hit the wall, slid down like a defeated flag. One of his old medals fell from its nail and hit the floor with a dull, metallic ring. That sound followed me into adulthood. At my graduation from Annapolis, the chair marked "Family" sat empty. Later, my mother mailed me a photo of that vacant seat with a note scrawled in her soft handwriting. "I'm proud of you." I should have been proud of him, too. But when I found his old personnel file, I learned the truth. He hadn't been framed at all. He'd been caught selling rescue equipment for cash and stripped of his commission. To his neighbors, he said he was punished for telling the truth. It was the first lie I knew he'd die believing. When I came home after my first deployment, he greeted me with the same bitterness. "You think you're better because you wear white? I think I'm just doing the job you taught me to love." "I taught you obedience, not ambition." That was the night our bond turned into a border. He measured every success of mine as another failure of his. I didn't know he'd someday try to even the score. The email came early one morning, a local headline flashing across my screen. From a corrupt father, to a decorated daughter. I clicked before I could think. The article was cruel in its accuracy, recounting things only someone inside our house would know. My stomach twisted between anger and pity. The story might have cleared my name by exposing his, but it left him naked to the world. I said nothing. Silence felt safer than truth. He read it that afternoon. I could hear the fury through the phone before I picked up. "You think you can wash me off your uniform?" he shouted, slamming something heavy in the background. His rage sounded younger than his years, almost desperate. A week later, I found him in a dim bar by the docks, half drunk, telling a stranger how his daughter had turned against him for a headline. The stranger nodded, buying him another drink. "Let me help you tell your side," he said. Voice smooth, practiced. My father, craving redemption, believed him. I didn't learn until much later that the man worked for Atlantic Forge, the defense conglomerate that would do anything to see me removed from the contracts I oversaw. One night, rain coming down sideways. I drove past his house. The porch light burned bright. Through the thin curtains, I saw him on the phone, pacing, gesturing, alive with purpose he hadn't felt in years. "Yes, I have access. She tells me things. I was in the service too," he said, pride tightening his throat. I didn't get out of the car. I sat there until the rain blurred everything into one gray sheet. Some wars start at home before they ever reach a battlefield. The next morning, an email waited in my government inbox. No subject line, no sender's name, just one attachment. I opened it without thinking. That was the moment the trap began to close. The rain in Washington was the color of gunmetal, streaking the windows of the Pentagon as I walked through security. My name had been called in an emergency summons, the kind that didn't wait for daylight or explanations. A uniformed officer handed me a sealed envelope marked, "For your eyes only." Inside was a printed email, classified coordinates from the Atlantic defense route, bearing my encrypted fingerprint. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Every layer of protocol I'd built, every barrier of clearance and verification, had been violated in my name. In my world, betrayal is measured in keystrokes, not bullets. The metadata traced back to one of my mirrored accounts, a perfect clone of my digital identity. Someone had built a shadow of me and used it to commit treason. Hours later, the interrogation room smelled like metal and recycled air. A red light blinked on the microphone between us. Two agents sat across the table, faces blank and tired. One slid a folder toward me. "Admiral Porter, your father has provided testimony." The words cracked something deep inside my chest. "What exactly did he say?" "That you were working beyond your clearance, hiding files from oversight." He never understood the difference between secrecy and shame. When they pushed a photo across the table, his signature at the bottom of a citizen statement, I didn't look away. The handwriting was shaky but certain, the first written proof that my father had turned against me. In the hallway afterward, a young officer saluted. "I only told them what I found, ma'am." Sarah Quinn, one of my subordinates I'd once reprimanded for leaving her terminal unsecured. The irony stung. The elevator mirrors threw my reflection back at me, jaw tight. Uniform immaculate, eyes hollow. A uniform can't protect you from your own blood. That night, in my quarters, the phone rang. My mother's voice trembled through the static. "Your father's on TV again. He says you've shamed the flag." I watched the tide roll against the harbor through my window. I'd rather drown in truth than breathe in his version of honor. When I hung up, another message appeared on my secure line. No subject, no sender, just 6 words. "They're watching the wrong terminal. Ethan Graves." And just like that, the silence around me cracked open. He'd found the spotlight he'd been chasing all his life. On live television, under studio lights too bright for honesty. My father sat beside a man introduced as an independent investigative journalist. The journalist's tie bore the discreet silver pin of Atlantic Forge. "No one stands above the flag," my father declared. "Not even my daughter." He didn't need to look into the camera. He already knew the country was watching. Truth was never his audience. Applause was. By dawn, the story had spread. A blog post claimed I was facing criminal charges, though no indictment existed. Commentators called me everything but innocent. My apartment became a cage of camera flashes. I cut the lights, sat in darkness, and listened to the evening anchor's voice. Sources say Admiral Porter may have compromised multiple defense contracts. A knock at the door followed. A police officer checking for my safety. I recognized him. He'd once served with my father. I'd faced insurgents who wanted my head. Now it was neighbors who wanted my shame. My phone buzzed again, an unlisted number. Ethan's voice came through, low and steady. "Ma'am, I think they're staging something bigger. Don't answer any summons. I'll reach you soon." "You think I'm being set up?" "I think someone wants your silence permanent." Minutes later, my phone lit up with an encrypted image, an internal report showing Atlantic Forge had hired a crisis PR firm to protect the whistleblower. The whistleblower was my father. That night, my mother appeared at my door, her coat soaked from the rain. She placed a paper bag of food on the counter and whispered, "He thinks he's protecting the family name, but he's destroying it." "Do you think he'd believe me if I told him the truth?" I asked. "Not if it means he has to doubt himself. He'd rather see me in prison than see himself as wrong." The next morning, the television glowed again, my father shaking hands with a congressman, accepting the title Citizen Patriot of the Year. The applause sounded hollow through the speakers. I turned off the TV, stared at my reflection in the dark screen, and whispered, "So this is what honor costs." Then, a knock at the door. No voice, no footsteps, just a small envelope slipped through the crack. Inside, a single note in familiar handwriting. "Charleston, 2 weeks. We'll finish this right. E.G." I folded it once, slipped it into my pocket, and finally let out the breath I'd been holding for months. Whatever this was, it wasn't over yet. Rain blurred the glass, turning the city into a ghost map. My phone rang. No caller ID. "Ma'am," Ethan said, his voice tense. "The leak wasn't an accident. You're the target, not the enemy." "Then who is?" "Atlantic Forge. They're buying senators and headlines. You're the audit they can't afford." I'd survived wars overseas. Now I was fighting one built from emails and egos. "In Charleston," the banker whispered. "Your father withdrew $30,000 in cash, said it was for legal fees." The receipt read A.F. Systems LLC. The smell of ink felt like betrayal. He'd finally found the price of his pride. At a naval checkpoint, Ethan opened his laptop. "They've planted a ghost code in NATO's system. It mimics your signature." "How long?" 2 weeks. Long enough to bury you." Every soldier learns patience, but not everyone survives it. That night, my mother handed me proof of the transfer. "He told me it was for a documentary, but I knew." Her voice cracked. "If you ever talk to him again, let the truth hurt him, not you." I sent my report to the Department of Defense. No names, just one line. "Integrity is the last uniform we wear." Ethan replied, "Understood. We'll be in Charleston." The crowd cheered as my father held the microphone. I did what any true American would do. I told the truth. They applauded a man who mistook confession for courage. Behind him, Atlantic Forge's logo flashed unnoticed. That evening, I sat by the pier, staring at his boat. Redemption. "You left more than a rope loose, Dad," I whispered. "You left the truth untied." Ethan appeared, handing me a flash drive. Proof of payment, direct from Forge. Driving home, a black SUV followed. The reporter leaned out, smiling. "Stay quiet, and we'll clear your name." "Then leak the truth," I said, walking away. Ethan had recorded everything, later, at my mother's house. Ethan said, "He won't stop until someone shows him what he's become." "Then show him, publicly." We chose the Veterans Tribute Gala, the same stage where I'd been humiliated. Sometimes, to cleanse a wound, you have to reopen it in front of everyone. That night, I called my father. "Tomorrow's your stage again. Dad, Let's see who tells the better truth. Outside, a helicopter swept over the harbor. The storm had arrived. The chandeliers blazed like a second sun above the Charleston Veterans Tribute Gala, their light too perfect, too familiar. I had been invited, requested, really, to clear the record before the public. The same marble floors, the same stage, even the same cameras waited like executioners dressed in gold. Some stages repeat themselves until someone walks in with the truth. My father sat in the front row, soaking up the flash of photographers as if it were oxygen. He gripped the microphone, his voice firm and rehearsed. "My daughter may wear a uniform," he said, "but I wear the truth." The audience laughed and applauded. I stood motionless, the spotlight burning my face, the sound of their clapping dull against the roar inside my chest. Then the déjà vu began. 2 federal agents cutting through the crowd, badges out, their voices slicing the noise. Flashbulbs burst like shrapnel. Again. Humiliation tastes the same the second time, unless you've already swallowed it. The lead agent raised his hand to deliver the warrant. When it happened, thud, 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 a sound too synchronized to be random. The hall fell silent as the double doors opened. A line of SEALs marched in, dress uniforms black and gleaming, white gloves clasped tight. They moved as one body, deliberate, unshakable. At the front, Ethan Graves. His voice rang through the marble like an order from another world. "Admiral Porter, we're here." Every head turned. The spotlight shifted, sliding off my father and locking on me. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. For the first time in a year, I wasn't the accused, I was the truth made visible. Ethan held up a folder sealed in red wax. "Operation Evergreen, authorized by the President." He read, calm and exact. "Admiral Porter's clearance extended to NATO security operations. Any allegations of unauthorized activity are void." Murmurs rippled and died. One agent leaned to the other and whispered, "Cancel it, she's covered." My father's hand trembled. The whiskey glass slipped, shattered against the floor. I stepped forward, voice level. "You reported me for doing the job you taught me to love, Dad." He couldn't lift his head. I turned toward the room. Tonight was meant to honor truth. Let's start there. The SEALs saluted in perfect silence, the flag behind us catching the full light. Then the screens lit up. Ethan's doing. First came the recording of my exchange with the Forge reporter, his voice admitting to the setup. Then a document. The payment trail, Forge, Harold Porter. No one spoke. The applause never came. My father sank into his chair, smaller than I'd ever seen him. When the truth finally stands, no one claps. They just breathe. The night after the gala tasted of salt and whiskey. The music had faded, leaving only the hush of the ocean and the hum of a city pretending not to notice what had just unraveled. Behind the hotel, my father sat alone on a stone bench, his suit wrinkled, tie loose, staring at nothing. I walked toward him, not in uniform, not as an officer, but as his daughter. We both served under flags, his of pride, mine of duty. "They told me you were dirty," he said finally, voice rough, as if each word scraped its way out. "They said they had proof." "You wanted to believe it," I answered quietly. "It made you feel noble again." He looked up, eyes rimmed red. "I just wanted to be right for once. Being right isn't the same as being good." "Dad?" For a moment, he said nothing. The silence between us stretched and softened until I saw something I'd never seen in him before. Shame that didn't wear armor. Then my mother stepped out from the shadows, her hand trembling as she rested it on his shoulder. "You can still choose who you are tomorrow." He broke, quietly, shaking under her touch. "I don't need you to apologize," I said. "I just need you to stop rewriting who I am." My phone buzzed. Ethan's voice came through, calm and steady. "Forge executives are in custody. Their chairman confessed. They used your father to break you." The wind off the harbor was cold, but I didn't feel it. I walked back through the empty corridor, my reflection catching in the mirrored wall, still, composed, free. Forgiveness isn't surrender. It's the moment you stop living inside someone else's sin. The sun was soft over Charleston's memorial parade. Flags lined the street, waving against the sea breeze. I stood quietly among the crowd, dressed simply, a single silver star on my jacket. My father stepped to the podium, his old uniform neat but worn. "I mistook attention for truth," he said. "I hurt the person who carried my name further than I ever could. I was wrong." No one clapped. The silence was the deepest applause. Sometimes the loudest redemption is silence. After the ceremony, he came to me. "You deserved a better father." "I got a better ending," I said. "That's enough." Later. I dropped the old photo into the harbor. Reckoning isn't punishment. It's the first honest page.